Hello friends, this is Lindsay for So Fontsy. Welcome back to another video tutorial. Today we are going to be etching a glass casserole dish using glass etching cream. And we'll be showing you what makes etching a casserole dish a little bit different than etching something like a wine glass. Because with the dish, you need to etch it in such a way so that the etching design does not come in direct contact with food. So we'll show you how to do that and what you need to do differently with the stencil in order to make sure that doesn't happen. So stay tuned and we'll go ahead and get started. So to create a custom stencil design, you'll want to start with the perfect font and then type out what you want it to say. And that's the beauty of fonts. You can make it say whatever you want. So for this one, we're using the Tales of Life and White Clementine font. Fonts you'll find in the Handwritten Font Bundle 2.0. So I threw the link in the video description to check that out. So let's talk about the casserole dish for a second. So I got this casserole dish from Target, and it's very important to note that the area you are going to be etching should not be an area that comes in direct contact with food. So that means we'll actually be etching on the very bottom of the dish. So flip it over and measure the dimensions of the bottom. So then back in your design program, go ahead and size that design appropriately. And then this design is going to be cut into stencil material. We're making a stencil here, so it does need to be treated a little bit differently than if you were cutting a vinyl decal. So go ahead and draw a large rectangle around the design. And that is going to act as like a mask around the area of the design for your stencil. And then this next step is very important, and what makes this project a little bit different than other glass etching projects is that since we are etching on the very bottom and we'll be looking through the glass to see the design, then you actually need to flip the design backwards. So you need to mirror the design. And I want to mention here that I'm using Brother Canvas Workspace to design the stencil, but you can use any design software you like, so Cricut Design Space or Silhouette Studio or Adobe Illustrator or whatever. And then your stencil is ready for cutting. So we've got Oramask 813 stencil material here, which is a fantastic stencil material. And with Oramask, like vinyl, it's got this backing to it. So you'll want to make sure to cut through just only the top stencil material and not all the way through the backing. So just like you would with vinyl. And with the Scan and Cut DX, they make it super easy because I can just select half cut, which means it's going to do just that. So go ahead and let your machine do its thing, and then when it's done, unload the mat, and then it's time for weeding. But please remember to keep in mind that you are creating a stencil and not a vinyl decal. So the areas that you are weeding are going to be different. So the areas that you'll weed out, that you're taking out of the design, are going to be where you'll eventually be applying the etching cream to. So you'll be weeding out the design itself. With the vinyl decal, you'd be doing just the reverse, leaving the design in there and weeding out everything around it. So that large rectangle that you drew in your design program, that can help to be a reminder to you that you want to weed out the design itself and leave the stencil material all around the design. Then take your transfer tape and you're going to transfer that stencil material onto the transfer tape. And this is just like you would transfer vinyl onto a transfer tape. But it's especially important that you keep the transfer tape application as smooth as possible. This is going to give you better results when you go to apply the stencil onto the back of the casserole dish, which is what you're doing next, and you want to keep that application as smooth as possible. And this is all very similar to applying a vinyl decal, and you can use the hinge method to apply the stencil material. You'll want to make sure that the casserole dish is nice and clean before you apply the stencil. And you'll want to burnish the stencil material onto the dish very, very well. And you can use a burnishing tool, but really your finger is what is going to be your best bet here, because you can take it around the design and press straight down to really get that stencil material to stick to the glass. Just be careful not to rub, back and forth, because you don't want any of the little bits of the stencil to come up, because, while the stencil material is sticky, it is designed ultimately to be removed. So press straight down onto the glass to burnish that material and get a really good seal around the edges of the stencil. Then if there are any exposed areas of glass around the edge of the stencil, then you'll want to cover that up with some blue painter's tape so you don't get any of the etching cream on it. And then you're ready for etching. So with the etching cream, you'll always want to make sure that you read and follow the directions, and make sure that you wear, appropriate protective items like gloves. And shake it up really well before you get started. And then when you apply the etching cream, you want to apply a very thick layer onto the glass. So thick enough that you can't see the design of the stencil through the cream. And to move that cream around, you can use a foam brush or a paintbrush. Just make sure that you aren't pressing too hard so that you don't accidentally lift up the edges of the stencil. And you'll leave the cream on for the specified amount of time. And the directions do say to leave it on for no more than a minute, but from personal experience and from that of many, many other crafters out there, 4 to 5 minutes may get you a more defined etch. So just make sure that the etching cream completely covers the area and the stencil. So, use that foam brush to, move it, just move the cream around, just make sure that it gets into every area. And then you're just going to rinse the cream away, and you want to rinse it with lots of running water. And some of the stencil is probably going to fall off during the rinsing process, which is just fine. Just make sure to rinse away all of the cream and then remove the tape and the rest of the stencil. And then, dry it with, a towel, and then you can flip it over, and look, you have created your own custom glassed etched casserole dish. How fun is that? And so even though we did the stencil backwards, when you flip over the casserole dish and you're looking through it, then it reads just like how the stencil is supposed to look. So that's how you do it, my friends, etching a glass casserole dish. You can make these any way you want. It's great to customize them as gifts. That's what makes your favorite font so wonderful, is you can make them say just about anything you want. So if you want to grab the fonts that we used in this project, you'll find them in the Handwritten Font Bundle 2.0. So click the link in the video description to check that out. And then I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time, friends. Bye.